Hi, my name's Walter Ratcliffe. I've been building learning environments to accelerate change for the last 2 decades. In this briefing, I want to share with you some of the basics we've learned about building a change program. By change, I'm talking about any new or modified business practice that requires your employees to learn and do something different. It could be a new system, a new business process, or any other initiative. The futurist Paul Sappho once said, "The amount of time required for new ideas to fully seep into a culture has consistently averaged 3 decades. The trend lines shown here support what he says. But it's very unusual that changes we make inside organizations have the luxury of this amount of time. Change takes work at both the individual and cultural level, and some groups of people are more ready than others. What's interested me is how we can speed up adoption by design. Well, most people like to believe they are on the forefront and that change is simple for them. That is, if they choose. So what we find in many organizations is a belief that change happens through training. The change is pretty simple. If you tell people what they need to do, they're of course bright people, so they'll understand. And if they understand, they are already pretty skilled. After all, we hire only the best people, so they'll be able to do what's required. They're already motivated, so if we can just share the benefits of the change, they'll see the wisdom. And finally, once you start doing something, they'll keep doing it because it works. Well, you guessed it, the change is more wish than reality. So where does it come apart? First, telling is only one side of the communication. A small part of what people hear is received, understood, or remembered. Effective communication requires attention, trust, readiness, relevance, and energy. So, will the receiver be able to translate a change into action? Well, that's the common wisdom. If people really understand something, they can take action. After all, doesn't everyone have common sense? For most purposes, you can count on it. But when something is new, you've probably experienced the vertigo on learning that what you mean and what someone else means by the same concept are totally different. When things change, building back up that common base of assumptions takes attention. Change also brings out anxieties. Some people jump into a challenge, others doubt it'll work, and others doubt that the effort will pay off. What stops a lot of people from trying is not what happens in the safe harbor of a classroom. It's what happens when reality strikes. How real is the training? There are good ways to accelerate action. For example, use pilots to discover unspoken knowledge, and simulation as part of training. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. This basic motivation question is what Robert Mager jokingly called the "you really oughta wanna" problem. Just because you've trained them, can you count on them to actually do it on the job? Motivation is not just what's in it for me, it's a matter of clarity. Sometimes it's difficult for individuals to bridge the chasm on their own. And what about the consequences of failing? People have lots on their plate, and change is usually an add-on. The effort of figuring out something new, not to mention pressure from bosses and peers, is enough to stop many change programs. Finally, is it safe to assume that once trained, that people will keep doing it? The consultant Gary Rumler put it best: if you put a good performer in a bad system, the system wins every time. He was talking about an organization's work system. Sometimes the best way to accelerate a change is to change the work environment, what managers do, how they manage people, the work processes and tools, the resources available, and the motivational system. Using these insights as a foundation will help you accelerate adoption of change in your organization. To inoculate against the common wisdom, remember these 2 big rules. Telling ain't training. Explaining something to someone doesn't mean that they'll be able to do it. And training ain't adoption. Your goal goes beyond putting people into class. It's about achieving adoption of the new process, system, standard, policy, or procedure. So, there are two parts to your design for change, the work environment and the individual. To accelerate change, the best place to start is with the work environment. It's often less expensive and has more impact than to change each individual. Then invest in a performance-based learning environment that provides a bridge to performance. The biggest takeaway is this: while training may be a lot of the cost, it's not the place to stop, because your return is realized by what you do in the work environment.